I want to talk about monitoring your infrastructure using open source tools such as Prometheus and visualizing that using Grafana. Now, Datadog is a tool. It's a little bit of enterprise, and there isn't a lot of documentation out there about it. Very few people are making content about it. But one thing I figured out is that a lot of enterprise actually use it. So we're going to have to find a way to actually get to know it. But for today, let's just talk about monitoring infrastructure using Prometheus and Grafana. So let's just begin. So let's pick it up. So we're going to pick this. So what is Prometheus? Prometheus. So Prometheus is an open source monitoring tool with a time series database. Yeah. So we can come here into docs and just pay. So it's an open source systems monitoring and alerting toolkit built by SoundCloud since its inception in 2012. Many companies and organizations have worked on it. Yeah. So it's an open source tool which is pretty good. So we need to realize how this works. So let's, for example, so if you come here, let's CD. I think I have Obsidian here, so I can come here to let me do screen, let me do an S, let's talk about Obsidian. Diana, okay, pretty much. So I can, okay, so let's just open that, and then we want to check something out. So let's do that. So opening tools. So if you have your infrastructure, so we want to basically see how Prometheus actually monitors things. So you have all these particular servers set up. You have your server set up, which you call targets. Yeah. If you have watched my video of Ansible, Ansible also has a specific target. Yeah. We have Ansible target. So if I have this is a app server. We have a DB server. We have an I don't know. We have app server. We have all these specific servers, client running here. We have logic running there, and a lot of things. Yeah, server. We have maybe this is distributed. So maybe this is data syncing. It's syncing data between different databases. So we have this application. So we want to monitor how each of these happens. Yeah. Now you remember with Ansible, we were basically pushing configurations out to them. So with specifically Prometheus, we'll probably need another server and have, let's say, Prometheus server. And then with Prometheus now, basically we have what you call a Prometheus.yaml file where we can define our targets, and then with the target, then we have things running. We have basically some services running on this particular data to expose a HTTP. So they expose an endpoint where Prometheus can actually come here and pull all these metrics, and then we can actually query them using what you call PromQL. So let's just look at that. Let's see. Good. That is okay. So when you come here, we can actually look at how this actually opens up in a new tab. So this is how basically Prometheus looks like. So we have a Prometheus server running on a server. Prometheus uses what you call a time series database, which is basically a database that records things in timestamps over time, basically to aggregate. So we have this here. And then the next thing we have is discovering targets. So we have something called like service discovery. So basically Prometheus basically discovers targets, or you can define your targets in a .yaml file, Prometheus.yaml file, which is the default. So if you have 100 servers, you can basically define those targets of yours in a YAML file like that. And then the thing about Prometheus is that it pulls data instead of having each of the servers push data to it. Now pushing data to it might be a little bit of a bottleneck because it's having too much coming in. Now one thing we say that on these particular targets, they expose their endpoints using HTTP. So it pulls out HTTP. Now you will figure out that they are very human readable and easy to see. When you're going to be setting up our own exporter, like Node exporter, which you're going to use, you can figure that out. Then we have this, and then we can create an alert. For example, we want to say, let's say, you know what is happening. For example, if our CPU utilization goes above 80% for consistent 20 minutes, then there is a problem. Then we can send an alert using via email, things like Slack tools integrated. And then we can actually visualize tools using something called Prometheus Web UI, but Prometheus isn't well built for massive scale visualization. So that's why we use another open source tool called Grafana that we basically do this with. Yeah, so that is basically all about introduction to Prometheus. So the first thing we're going to do is we do Prometheus. Then when we are done with monitoring Prometheus, then now we can do Grafana. So PromQL. So PromQL is basically a query language that we use to, you want to query your metrics. Yeah. So metrics are data that we are collecting specifically from, you're collecting from your targets, your hardware servers. So something like CPU utilization, you talk about memory and how HTTP requests and over time. We have something called histogram. So with the histogram, you can form these metrics over time, particular something. So this is a lot of theory. So that is basically so. To install this, there are different ways. So one thing I want to do is we're going to install Prometheus on bare metal. So we're going to install it basically bare metal with a tar file, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, how do you call it, with the second one, Grafana, we're just going to use Docker. So each of them you can install them in ways that you want, but I would prefer that if you're going to do something like you can do any, so you can do either Docker or just do it on bare metal. So I'm going to do both so that we can see. But when you're going to be installing something like your own exporter file, exporter needs a little bit of permission. So I would prefer, if you're running any exporter that you have, then you should be using just install it on bare metal. Now, if you're asking what is exporter, so let's talk about Prometheus exporters. Prometheus, you might be asking yourself, what the hell is a freaking exporter? Anyway, so exporters are integration. So how does Prometheus get our metrics from? Does it get those metrics from your hardware? So you're going to install what you call an exporter tool. So these are official exporters. So if you want to get metrics about MySQL database or Memcached or all that, you install that service, and then that service will collect all those metrics and expose it on one endpoint for using HTTP for Prometheus to be able to pull, basically. So one we're going to use is called Node Exporter. Control L, let's do Node Exporter. Node Exporter. Node Exporter. Node Exporter. And so I'm not sure why Node will exist. Node system. So this is Node Exporter that we're going to definitely use. Okay, so now that we've gotten there, let's just start with Prometheus. So how do you go do Prometheus? So you come here and say download. So we're going to do it here. So when you come to Prometheus download, you're going to come here to Prometheus Linux or tar. So we're using Linux in this case. So when you do Linux, we're going to download it. It's going to take about 7 minutes to actually download. Okay, so now we come here. What we have here, we have Prometheus running here. So we have Prometheus in this case. Prometheus is downloaded. So now the next thing we're going to do is let's actually do this. Let's just really open this terminal here. So what we're going to do is we're going to unzip it. So we're going to tar xvf and then Prometheus. Okay. So that should be pretty good. So now we can cd into it. So when you come here, we have Prom tool, Prometheus, and all these console libraries and licenses. We don't need much of them. For a beginner class, we are just mostly interested in this Prometheus.yaml file and Prometheus. So if I can do some things, if I can come here and say, let me see, nano, and then Prometheus.yaml. So this is the YAML file. So let's look at the YAML file and how it actually works. So here is my global config, defines global configurations, and in the global configuration we have scrape interval. So after how long should we scrape for data from that HTTP endpoint? We can do 5 seconds. We can do 5 seconds so that we get a lot of data in this case. scrape the interval every 50 seconds. Okay, evaluation interval, evaluate that. We can also do evaluation intervals at every 5 seconds. I don't care. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Let's do 5 seconds. So okay, we're pretty good. So then we have alert managers, alerting. So basically the alerting sets up what are we going to alert. Yeah, so it's going to set up alerts in case we need some certain threshold has been reached, which in this case we're not going to do that now. So the next thing, we're going to define a job name. Yeah, we're going to define a job name. In this case, job name is Prometheus. So that is our first job. You can have several jobs working there. And then when we come here, static configs. So with the job now, we basically here what exactly are we scraping. So target basically gives you where you're scraping your data from. So in this case, we're going to leave this as 9090, and then we're going to figure out later how we can switch that. So we can do that and say yes, and then okay, bam, we're good. So now we're good. So we do an ls again, and then in order to run Prometheus, one thing I want us to do, I want us to run in the background. So let's do this. Screen ls, we have screen, we have that running. So we're going to do another screen. Let's do an s. Let's call it prom. Let's just call it prom. Prom. That should be okay. So now let's just go to let's run the Prometheus binary. Prometheus binary. Okay, so now with that we're good. So now that we are running Prometheus in the background, we can come here and do localhost, and Prometheus run default on port 9090. You can see that. So on port 9090 we have here we have Prometheus. So this is Prometheus now, and it's collecting metrics. So let's try executing this. So you can see we have data here. We have data here. For example, if you want to try for app, so we want to execute app and see what is running. So we can see these two are running, and you can also check it in a graph. So this shows you graph of what is running. So that, or you can do let's see, go information. Let's execute that. What does that do? What does that give us? Not much. So let's see something meaningful. CPU total seconds. Let's execute that. This comes that in a graph. So you can see we have a graph doing something here. Yes, you can see we have something. Basically Prometheus isn't so it's okay. We can query all our stuff. We have what we call PromQL, which is basically used to query. Now personally, I've just been doing Prometheus for the last few days, so I have to get PromQL is something I haven't really fixed out. But Prometheus, let's do Prometheus cheat sheet. There is Prometheus cheat sheet that is here. I think I'm going to put it in the basically going to put it. I'm going to put Prometheus, the cheat sheet, in the description below so that you can check out. So node CPU seconds total. Let's do this. This is node CPU seconds total. No, this is if you are using node exporter basically. So node go routines, go threads. I'm pretty sure we don't have node here in the first place, but let's just check that. We don't have node in this case for our Prometheus server. So if you come here and go node, there is no, we do not have, there is nothing, because we're not using node exporter. So we're pretty good. So I'll put this in the section below. So now we actually have Prometheus running. So you can see Prometheus is actually querying data. So if you do, let's say Prometheus, if you come here and do time series database, so you can see we have all this working. We can look at targets. We see that this is targets that we have. So we can click on these targets, and you can now see, if you click on Prometheus 9090/metrics, now you can see what is being exposed, where the HTTP endpoint is getting exposed here specifically, and you can see the data here is very human readable. You can see here. So this is what is being exposed. So that is pretty good. So that is for Prometheus. Now, the next thing is now we want to visualize the data that we actually gotten from here. So what are we going to do? We're going to install Grafana. So let's click on one of the ways, now you can go to Grafana here. You can go to Grafana and download Grafana here. So you can come here to Grafana and then do Linux. So you can come here and say you're doing open source, the open source version. So Ubuntu and Debian, you can install it that way, or you can basically download the, how do you call it? You can download the build file and basically, you know, do that. So depending on whether you're using, this is Ubuntu, Debian, standalone, OpenSUSE, RHEL, and you can basically install it and run it, and basically Linux on ARM and all that stuff. Or you can do Docker. But I want to do it on Docker, so I'm going to just go to Docker Hub. So I'm just going to go to Docker Hub, because I wanted to run each of those. So let's go to Docker Hub and just look for Grafana. So so we have Grafana in this case running here. So now we need to docker pull Grafana from that particular. So we're going to run it using that. So obviously, if you're trying to run a particular container and the image file doesn't exist locally, it's definitely just going to pull it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to simply come here and say paste. So I'm going to do docker d. So before I do that, actually before I do that, I want to screen. I want this needs to be running on screen. So I have Prometheus and Obsidian. So let me do another screen. -s meaning I'm creating another screen and I want to make sure I know the screen, and then let's call this Grafana so that I know what I'm running with. Okay. Okay, so now that I have a new screen, so the thing about screens, that with screens you can run things in the background without having to detach them. So they run there basically like they're in the background. So Grafana, let's copy that and let's run it. I think I'm good. Okay. So good. So screen as I can delete that. So let me paste that. Okay. So let me do that. Let me paste that. So I don't want to run it as D. I already am in a screen, so I'm not going to run it in the detach mode. So docker run called the name Grafana. We have defined it P, and we're running it on port 3000. So we're going to do that. That should be able to run it. So then I can detach that and exit. That's pretty good. So if I come here to localhost, then I can do port 3000. So if I do port 3000, I have this, and by default we have admin for this, and now I can log in and skip that. So you can log in and set your own password, or you can skip that, and boom. So now we're in Grafana dashboard. We're basically now in Grafana dashboard in this particular case. So this is how Grafana looks. So whenever you want to actually get data, you need to add a data source. So in this case you need to add a data source. So you need to add a data source. So in this case, the first data source, and then you're going to click on Prometheus, and then Prometheus. So for some reason I'm not sure what is happening. So I'm not sure what is happening, but for some reason I cannot get data source from local Prometheus, but I'm not sure what is happening. So we can see Prometheus. Let me see, which is Prometheus. Prometheus is running on this. Prometheus is running on 9090. So I can simply come here and say, let's try that again, because HTTP local host, okay, .9090. That's all I need to in this particular case, and I'm pretty good. So let's say save and test. Now for some reason I have not been able, this has not been able to work. It has been giving me a lot of issues. So if somebody knows why this is not working, every time I put this this particular one, this particular Prometheus server URL, it does not work. I've tried to look for research. I'm not sure why doesn't it work. But if I do something like I think demo.promlabs.1000 metrics, see, that is exposed. So it means if I basically come here and do demo.promlabs.com, then I'm good. Yeah. So if I come here in for my data source, come here, paste that, HTTP demo, even HTTPS still works. Promlabs.com and save and test. It's taking it in. So for some reason, I cannot. So that one, this is one that is exposed for us from Promlabs. So that is okay. You can use that. So you can see, come here and save and test. Pretty much works. So now that we have saved ours and test, let's go to dashboards. So now we can create a dashboard. And we can add visualization. And we're visualizing from Prometheus. So now you come here to panel title, I don't know, I'm going to do CPU usage, basically. So CPU usage describes CPU usage. So then now you come to CPU usage, and then you come here and select a metrics. CPU load average, something like that. So you can run it as code, or you can run it as builder, where you just select label, container label, Docker compose projects, or CPU load average. Let's try just run query just like that, and then boom. So if you look at this, so it's basically giving us CPU load average in 10 seconds. So we are getting this, we're getting that. So we can play around with this. So explain, select label, name, container, label. Okay, I don't think I need anything there. Select value and stuff. So you can see last 6 hours. Let's do last 15 minutes. So you can see we are starting to have dashboards. So we have table view and that particular view. So you can see we're starting to get something that looks like visualization. And then we can click. So that is a time series. So we can use, let's say, a bar chart or a gauge like that. Yeah. So a gauge like that. So depending on what you want to use. So yeah. So depending on CPU load average, we can use a gauge, or we can use a bar like that to visualize our data. So it depends on what exactly you want. So if you want to do like bar chart doesn't work really well. Let's try histogram. Let's say a histogram line width. Doesn't seem really. Now this is something that I'm playing with right now, so it's not very I'm not going to be very good at it, but I'm basically making this video from a beginner viewpoint, which is pretty much okay. So now the good thing about Grafana is it's open source. So what does that mean? Grafana dashboards. So we have Grafana dashboards in this case. Yeah. So we have Grafana dashboards. So with dashboards, you don't have to figure out everything. So for example, if I come here, if in this case I was using let me see, not exporter, never mind. So for example, if I'm using let me see, Prometheus 2.0 overview, Prometheus, get started with Grafana, create free account, that all dashboards, revisions, blah blah blah. Let's see. So this ID, let's try 3662. Let's try 3662 for our this. So let's try 3662 for our that. So we can discard that, remove, and then add import a dashboard, and then let's give an ID of that. Then let's load it, and then let's say import. Our data source is Prometheus. Let's set Prometheus, and then boom. So now you look at that. Now we have dashboards that have been made. So uptime is this 100.00, currently down. So you see, you're getting dashboards. You're getting a full dashboard in this particular case. So we're getting dashboards that's already been made by people. So we don't have to struggle with a lot of this stuff. So personally, I would think I would not need to actually sit down to figure out my dashboards. I'll simply just use community dashboard, tweak them a little bit, and then I'll be pretty good. So you see, it's getting you stuff like that. So this is for Prometheus. If I was using node exporter, like that, I'd come back here and I'd be like, node exporter is here. Let me see node exporter. I'd do just node exporter. So I'll do node exporter in this case. Come here, node exporter. See, node exporter has some serious stuff. Has some serious, CPU, disk, memory, and all that stuff. And I would simply just come here and copy the ID. It's 1860, and then apply it here. Let me see demo. Where is that? So I can just do that. Then we're pretty much good. So we have dashboards. We have so many dashboards. Save dashboard. We're pretty much good. Save. Yeah, so we have Prometheus 2 overview. That, yes, so I can simply come and create a new dashboard here, new dashboard, and I could import this. I could import, let's say, 1860 for my that, and then I'd simply use that as data source. Import. Now we're not going to get all our data from this. We actually did get our data, so that's pretty nice. Now you can see that. So I'm not sure what exactly happened, but you can see this now. We have pressure, CPU, system load, all that stuff, and we're actually getting, memory. We're actually getting full data from this. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah. So with just a single glance, we can actually check out what is going on within our system. Monitoring, we can create alerts. We even have an alert. We even have an alert dashboard here already set up for us, so that we can know how things work. I mean, how amazing is this? So this is my first week working around with Prometheus and Grafana, and I'm still learning, and I want to get better at it. But so far, I'm actually impressed with what I'm actually getting. Now, Promlabs already gave us basically what we were using. Promlabs already basically gave us data that we can use. Now, you need to, sometimes, what if we want to monitor our own system by ourselves? Now, we need to use an exporter. So, like I said, Prometheus exporters. Yeah, so we have those. So so one of them we're going to use is node exporter. So depending on what you, so we have exporters. So if you're going to be monitoring, let's say a MySQL database, then you're going to pick one of the exporters, because it's going to get the metrics of what you basically want. So now I want to do node exporter, because I want to monitor maybe my utilization. So if I come here to node exporter, here I am. So here I am, node exporter. I'm pretty much good. So I can simply just come here to node exporter, look for the latest here. Let me see, for Linux, I can simply do AMD64. Come here, AMD64, and then how fast is that going to download? About 5 seconds, and then I'm good. So I'm about here 5 seconds, and you're good. So you come here and let's open a terminal here. Pretty much good. So when you open a terminal here, let's do tar xvf. So that's how then I'm going to do node exporter. So good. So cd into node exporter, and what I get is this node exporter. Notice, so all I need to do in this case is just to run node exporter. But before I do that, I want to run it in a screen. Let me add, I want to do screen as, and then let's do node. Let me just call it exporter. Exporter works for me. So pretty good. So I can just now do what was it? Sorry. What was it? What was the name? ls was node exporter. Okay, so node exporter, and you can see here you can find it on port 9100. So now I can detach and exit, so that if I come here now on localhost 9100, boom, now I'm on node exporter. And if I click on metrics, now you can see it's getting all this data. It's the same thing that is happening from Promlabs. You can see from Promlabs, this is the data that we're getting, and it's the data. So now that we have local metrics, now if you want to basically, so from this we can go to our prometheus.yml. So we can come here and go to our Prometheus. So we can come here to Prometheus. Where is Prometheus? So let's come let's come to Prometheus in this case. So let's just go back to Prometheus, for example. So you can see Prometheus right now. We want to look for something. So if you try looking for node, try looking for something nodey. There's no node running in this particular case, so that sucks. So if we come here now, just like I'm here, and screen ls, right? So if I do screen ls, so let me reattach to prom. Let me reattach screen, reattach prom. Okay, so reattached to prom, Control C. So I'm reattached there. So what I need to do is just sudo, let me just nano Prometheus .yaml. So if I come here and I change my target, I can add my targets to localhost 9090. Let's probably try probably try 9090. Let's try 9100. Or we can add those specific targets, and then okay, pretty much okay. So if I do that, Prometheus, and boom, and let's exit. Let's try that again if that works. So let's come here, let's try doing something nodey. Okay, something node. Okay, so it still hasn't done anything. So come back to Prometheus status, configuration. Maybe didn't see something, maybe didn't see anything. Targets 9100, yeah, 9100 metrics. So node exporter. So targets, basically we're getting all the specific targets. We're getting all those targets. I'm not sure. Prometheus, where's Prometheus? Prometheus here. Prometheus 1990, pretty good. Node, do I get anything nodey? Yes, yeah, now you can see them. So they are just taking time to load. So, and then if you come to something like node cheat sheets, so for example, some node file system side byte. Let's try this. So this is one of those cheat sheets. Then if we come here to Prometheus, do that. So that is metrics. So if I come here and do an expression and try that to run, execute that, so it gets me there. If I do graph, it's bringing something like this. It's pretty good, I guess, pretty good. Yeah, so these are basically PromQL cheat sheets, which I'm not sure where they are, but pretty good. So I can add node memory free or go record routines. Yeah, so let's see, node network MTU bytes and on device. Let's try this out. Let's see only specific labels. So node network MTU bytes and on device node network address assigned type 0. Let's try and see what that is going to do for us. Let's try that is going to do for us. Let's execute that. So we're going to get this. So we have that in graph. We're going to get this. So node network MTU bytes device. So we're getting this is our ENPLS. This is our network device. This is our network interface card, I believe, and this is our Wi-Fi card, and then this is our loopback. So you'll figure it out. I'm figuring it out. You can figure it all out. Yeah. So that's just me doing my thing, just enjoying and having fun with this. Now there's so much to this. See how dashboard is monitoring all. You can check out this thing. So I was figuring it. How does this entirely help you as a person? When you're monitoring tools, it might help you avoid things before they actually happen. And I'm going to use this one, for example. So for example, let's say we have a DB server, right? Let's have this DB server. Let's say let's delete this. Let's just call this a DB server. DB server, and I have DB server 1. Let's play, for example, DB server. Let's do DB server 1. Let's call this DB server 2. Okay, good. So so we have DB server 1, and then this server for syncing distributed database. I don't know, something like that. So we are distributing all. So we have database 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and something like that. Yeah. So we have that. And then, for example, let's come here. Let's just do that. And then let's add this. For example, we have a database. So we have a microservice authentication auth microservice. So this the service that is actually doing authentication is running on this, and then we actually have now the client, the front end. We have the front end running here. Front end just running here, just static HTML, CSS, and all that, just running here. So somebody wants to log in. For them to log in, they need to authenticate using this, and in order for this to authenticate, we need to use each of these databases. So in order for this to sync, probably it needs to this is the service that is making sure everything is syncing completely. So for example, this is going like this. Make sure the distributed database. I'm not sure whether it's synchronously or asynchronously, whatever that happens. So we're pretty much okay. So this is how it works. So the authentication database needs to authenticate from here and back and forth, I guess. And the same happens for this. Front end is dependent, needs to authenticate using this this particular service. So we have here. So this depends on this. This depends on database to authenticate, and this database make sure this sync well. So what happens, for example, so what happens one time when, let's say, this one goes out of memory? So when this, let's say this this database goes out of memory, yeah, let's see, this one goes out of memory. Okay, so and this goes out of memory. Let's say let's say this one goes out of memory, this one for syncing. So this basically, this one goes out of memory, yeah. So this goes out of memory, and when this goes out of memory, it's not able to sync this particular two service. And then let's say the DB server 1 now cannot handle authentication, cannot handle back and forth going here, and then the authentication microservice cannot work, cannot now actually pull data from this, and that means the front end can now not do authentication, and users will not be able to log in. Now if something like this happens, then if you are not logging or monitoring, then you're going to figure out that you're going to get the information when the users are unable to log in. But if you're actively if you're actively logging each of these particular servers, then basically when this one is about to run out of memory, you would have had something like a timer, an alert message saying, okay, this is going to memories at approaching critical mass, let's say 86%, 90%. Then it would alert you. You'd basically scale it or add more memory, and that way we would avoid the entire chain reaction. Otherwise, you would have to sit on front end and simply monitor what's happening front end. Why can't I do that? And then you're going to take some time, figure out that authentication microservice is not doing the work. When you come here, it's going to tell you that, okay, when I come here, I cannot pull data. When you come here, you're going to take a little bit of time to figure out that this is out of memory, and then you have to fix it for probably how many hours. But if you're monitoring this from the word go, then you would figure out, oh bro, this is about to lose memory. It's going to cause an entire chain reaction. And this is just a small system. If you're running a very complex system like things like Netflix, then it's going to be a lot of chaos. So that is my simple understanding of logging and monitoring. I'll be getting better at it. Obviously, I'm now a beginner, but as I get better at it, I will be using to implement. Plus, I'm going to be implementing a big project. I'm going to be deploying a full Netflix using all DevOps tool at the end of this particular session. Today is day 77. We have 13 days left for 90 days of DevOps. Otherwise, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you.